In May of 2026, a 7-person mountaineering expedition was high on Denali, the tallest mountain in North America. These were not tourists. They were an experienced team, deep into a climb that takes most people more than 2 weeks, moving through some of the most serious alpine terrain on the continent. Near a place called Denali Pass, at about 18,200 feet, 4 of them fell. 3 of them died. The 4th was rescued the next day, lifted off the mountain on a long line beneath a helicopter, because the terrain and the conditions would not allow the aircraft to land. They had done the training. They had the equipment. They had the experience. And it happened at a spot so notorious for killing skilled climbers that it has a nickname, and the fall came where nearly all of them come, not on the way up, but on the way down. Which points to something most people misunderstand about this mountain. The danger of Denali is not that it is hard. Everyone knows it is hard. The danger is that it kills the people who are ready for it. This mountain draws climbers and admirers from all over the world. But what most people don't know is the dark truth hidden beneath its beauty. Stay until the end to discover the shocking reality. Denali stands in the interior of Alaska, the centerpiece of a national park and preserve that sprawls across roughly 6 million acres of subarctic wilderness. Its summit reaches 20,310 feet. That makes it the highest peak in North America and one of the most dangerous high mountains in the world to climb. Most of the people who come to the park never touch it. They ride the bus along the single park road. They watch for grizzlies and caribou and Dall sheep. They photograph the mountain from a distance if the clouds allow it, because the mountain makes its own weather and is hidden more often than not. Only a small number set foot on it. Each year, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 people attempt to reach the summit, almost all of them in May and June, in the narrow window when the mountain is climbable at all. The expedition takes most of them around 17 days. And in a typical year, fewer than half of the people who start actually reach the top. Over the history of the park, more than 130 people have died on this mountain. These are not, for the most part, careless people. They are climbers who prepared for years. And that is the first thing to understand about Denali. It does not primarily kill the unprepared. It kills the prepared, and it has very specific ways of doing it. Consider what the climb actually involves, because the shape of it is part of the danger. Climbers do not walk up to Denali. They fly, in a small ski-equipped plane, onto a glacier at around 7,000 feet, landing on the ice itself, and from that moment they are committed to a wilderness with no roads, no lodges, and no easy way off. From that glacier base camp, they spend the next 2 to 3 weeks working their way up the mountain in stages, carrying heavy loads to a higher camp, then climbing back down to sleep, then climbing up again the next day, a slow relay designed to let their bodies adjust to the altitude. It is exhausting before the hard climbing even begins. They haul everything they need on their backs, and in sleds, food, fuel, tents, and they melt snow for every drop of water they drink. By the time a team reaches the high camp and turns toward the summit, they have already been living for 2 weeks in brutal cold and thinning air, and they are tired in a way that no single day of effort can produce. The summit push happens on top of all of that accumulated exhaustion. One thing does work in a climber's favor, and it is strange enough to mention. In the Alaskan spring, this far north, the sun barely sets. Climbers move in near perpetual daylight, which means they can travel at almost any hour and are rarely caught out by simple darkness. But even that has an edge to it. Endless light can blur the discipline of time, tempting tired climbers to keep going when the clock, if they could feel it, would tell them to stop. On Denali, the sun does not force you down. You have to decide to go down yourself. The first of those ways is something you cannot see, and something the raw number on the summit sign does not tell you. 20,000 feet is high, but Denali is more dangerous at that height than the number alone suggests because of where it sits on the planet. The atmosphere is not the same thickness everywhere. It is thinner at the poles than at the equator. Denali stands far to the north, at a high subarctic latitude, and that means the air pressure near its summit is lower than the pressure you would find at the same altitude on a mountain near the equator. In practical terms, the summit of Denali makes your body feel as though it is even higher than 20,000 feet, as though you are standing on a substantially taller peak. There is less oxygen in every breath than the elevation implies. And climbers spend not hours but weeks up in that thin air, hauling loads, camp to camp, while their bodies fight to adjust to an environment that is actively hostile to human life. Altitude sickness here is not a footnote. The same conditions that produce it, the low pressure and the thin air, can produce fluid in the lungs and swelling in the brain, conditions that can turn from a headache into a life-threatening emergency in a matter of hours, high on a mountain where help is days away. The second way is the cold. Denali is one of the coldest mountains on Earth, and again, it is the latitude that does it. This is not a Himalayan giant sitting in temperate air. It is a massive block of ice and granite in the Alaskan subarctic, and the temperatures it produces are almost incomprehensible. High on the mountain, the cold can fall well below -40, and the wind can drive the effective temperature far lower still. At those temperatures, exposed skin freezes in minutes. Frostbite is not a risk that hangs in the background. It is a constant, present threat that climbers manage every single hour of the climb. And the weather that delivers that cold arrives fast. A clear morning can become a whiteout storm that pins a team in their tents for days, unable to move up or down, watching their food and their fuel and their strength drain away while the mountain simply waits them out. Storms have trapped strong teams high on Denali for a week or more. And every day spent up there, in that cold and that thin air, is a day the body is breaking down rather than recovering. But the single most revealing statistic about Denali is not about the cold or the altitude. It is about direction. Of all the climbers who have died from falls on this mountain, the clear majority died on the way down. Not climbing toward the summit, but descending from it. And that pattern has a specific, brutal logic. A climber pushing for the summit is moving toward a goal, full of adrenaline and purpose, on legs that still have something left. The same climber, coming down after a summit push, is a different person. Exhausted. Dehydrated. Oxygen-starved. Mentally dulled by altitude, by cold, by the sheer effort of the day. Their reserves are gone, their guard is down, and the terrain they now have to reverse is exactly as dangerous as it was on the way up, except that now they are too depleted to give it the attention it demands. And nowhere is this more true than on the traverse the Latvian team was crossing. The route between the high camp, at around 17,200 feet, and Denali Pass, at about 18,200, is a slope of snow and ice that climbers call the Autobahn. The name is grimly ironic. It sounds fast and open, but it is a place where a great many of the mountain's deaths and injuries have happened, almost all of them from unprotected falls, and most of them on the descent. It is a traverse, meaning climbers move sideways across an angled slope, and a slip there does not stop on its own. A climber who loses their footing on hard ice can slide and accelerate down the slope with nothing to arrest the fall. Park rangers and mountain guides go to the trouble of installing and maintaining anchors along this stretch, driving pickets into the snow so that climbers can clip in for protection, precisely because so many people have died here. And still they die here, because on the descent, tired and cold and moving to get down before the weather turns, a climber can fail to clip in, or clip in poorly, or simply lose their feet on ice that offers no mercy. The mountain does its worst killing at the exact moment the climber has the least left to give. Summit day itself is a trap of timing. The final push from the high camp to the top and back can take a full, punishing day, 12 hours or more of effort in the coldest, thinnest air on the mountain. A team that leaves late, or moves slowly, or lingers too long on the summit, can find themselves descending the most dangerous terrain of the entire climb, as the temperature drops and the exhaustion of the day settles into their legs. The margin between a clean summit and a disaster is often just a few hours of judgment about when to turn around. Then there is the ice underneath everything. Denali is a glaciated mountain, and its glaciers are riddled with crevasses, deep cracks in the ice that can be hundreds of feet deep, and hidden completely beneath a thin bridge of snow. A climber walking across an apparently solid, flat glacier can, without any warning, break through a snow bridge and fall into a crevasse. This is why climbers on Denali travel roped together, so that if one falls in, the others can arrest the fall and haul them out. But the ice has other weapons. In 2012, 4 climbers from Japan were killed when a shallow avalanche swept them off their feet and pushed them into a crevasse. On one branch of the Great Glacier that carries climbers onto the mountain, the northeast fork of the Kahiltna, the combination of avalanche paths and hidden crevasses is so lethal that it earned a name of its own, the Valley of Death, after a series of climbers vanished there over the years. On another feature, a steep couloir on the mountain's west side, so many falls have occurred that climbers gave it a dark nickname too, the Orient Express. The names tell the story. This is a mountain where the dangerous places are so consistent and have taken so many that they have been named by the people who survived them. And there is a quieter danger, one that has nothing to do with falling or freezing, and everything to do with a small mistake in a tent. High on the mountain, climbers melt snow for water and cook their food on small stoves, often inside their tents to escape the wind. A stove burning in an enclosed space produces carbon monoxide, a gas with no color and no smell, and in a sealed tent it can build to a fatal concentration without anyone noticing. Climbers have died on Denali this way, poisoned quietly while doing nothing more dangerous than making dinner. It is the same category of danger that runs through every truly wild place. The threat you never see, that gives no warning, that arrives while you believe you are safe. The numbers on Denali tell a sober story, and also, oddly, a hopeful one. In the roughly 1 century between the first attempts and the mid-2000s, researchers counted 96 deaths on the mountain. The deadliest single year on record was 1992, when 11 people died. The great majority of those who died were men, and the largest share died on the most popular route, the one that almost everyone climbs. But here is the hopeful part. In 1995, the Park Service put a registration system in place, requiring climbers to sign up in advance, to be screened, and to receive orientation before they ever set foot on the mountain. In the years that followed, the fatality rate fell by more than half. The mountain did not become less dangerous. The climbers became better prepared and better informed, and that alone cut the death toll dramatically. It is proof of something important. Preparation matters enormously here. And even so, the mountain still kills. There is also the matter of being alone, and of what rescue even means at that height. Climbing solo on Denali multiplies every risk, because the entire safety system of mountaineering, the rope between climbers, the partner who can arrest your fall, dig you out, or notice that something is wrong, depends on there being more than one of you. A solo climber who breaks through a snow bridge has no one holding the other end of the rope. But even a full team faces a hard truth about self-rescue. On a desert trail, an injured hiker can sometimes limp out. High on Denali, there is no limping out. A serious injury above the high camp, in bad weather, can mean waiting, sometimes for days, for a break in the storm long enough to attempt an evacuation that may not be possible at all. The mountain can simply refuse to let anyone reach you. When something does go wrong on Denali, the rescue is an ordeal in its own right, and it is worth understanding just how extreme it is. This is not a mountain where an ambulance waits at the bottom. The Park Service maintains a ranger camp partway up the mountain, at around 14,200 feet, and a medical presence on the glacier, and these things save lives. But a rescue high on the peak means flying a helicopter to the thin, cold edge of what a helicopter can do. Pilots have performed landings on Denali so marginal that they have been described as semi-controlled crashes. They have balanced a single skid on a slope while a climber was loaded aboard, They have hoisted people off the mountain on long lines because there was nowhere to touch down. Every one of those missions puts the rescuers themselves in serious danger, in the same thin air and violent weather that endangered the climber. Rescuers have died on this mountain trying to save others. So when you hear that a climber was rescued from Denali, understand that it means a group of people chose to fly into some of the most hostile flying conditions on the planet, on behalf of a stranger, and that the rescue was never guaranteed to succeed. And these operations are not only dangerous, they are costly, and they lean on people who chose to be there. The medical camp on the glacier is staffed in part by volunteer doctors, who give up weeks of their lives to sit in the cold and treat the mountain's casualties. Rangers patrol the upper mountain, carrying the weight of other people's emergencies at genuine risk to themselves. Every rescue is a bill paid in money, and in danger, and in the exhaustion of people who did not have to come. Underneath all of it, the deepest danger on Denali is the same one that haunts every wild place, and it wears a particular disguise here. It is the belief that competence is protection. On an easy trail, overconfidence gets a beginner into trouble. On Denali, the people are not beginners, and that is exactly why the mountain is so revealing. These are climbers with real skill, real training, real experience, and the hard truth, documented over decades, is that experience and knowledge are not protection against certain hazards. A snow bridge does not care how many mountains you have climbed. The Autobahn does not soften for a resume. The cold does not check your credentials before it takes your fingers. And the mind that has invested 17 days, thousands of dollars, and in many cases years of preparation into reaching this one summit is a mind under enormous pressure to keep going, to push for the top, even when the weather is turning, even when the body is failing, even when the wise choice is to turn around within sight of the goal. That pressure has a name in the mountains: summit fever. And on Denali, it is especially deadly, because reaching the summit is only half the climb. The other half, the descent, is where the mountain does most of its killing, and a climber who spent everything to reach the top has nothing left for the part that is statistically most likely to kill them. That is the true nature of Denali. Not malice, not cruelty, indifference at an almost unimaginable scale. This mountain was pushed up out of the earth over millions of years, and it has stood in that subarctic cold, making its own weather, growing its own glaciers, long before any human being ever tried to climb it. It does not know you trained for this. It does not know how badly you want the summit, or how far you traveled, or how much it cost you to be standing on its flank in the thin and freezing air. It does not lower the pass, or warm the wind, or fill in the crevasse, or steady your exhausted legs on the way down. It simply is what it is. The highest, coldest, most indifferent point on the continent, doing exactly what a mountain of ice and stone at that latitude has always done. And that is not a reason to stay away. It is a reason to be honest about what the mountain actually is. The climbers who come off Denali alive, the majority who summit or turn back and walk down safely, are not the ones who conquered it. No one conquers Denali. They are the ones who respected it. They acclimatized slowly. They clipped into every anchor even when they were exhausted. They turned around when the weather told them to. They treated the descent with the same seriousness as the climb. They understood the one thing that separates the climbers who come home from the ones who do not. It is not strength or courage or the will to reach the top. It is the humility to accept that on this mountain, the summit is optional, and getting down is not. So the question is not whether Denali is worth climbing. For those who are ready, it is one of the great mountains of the world. The question is whether a person understands what they are truly standing on when they are up there. Not the mountain in the photograph, seen from the warm safety of the park road. The real one. A subarctic giant where the air is thinner than the number says, where the cold falls past anything most people have ever felt, where the ground itself can open beneath your feet, and where the way down is more dangerous than the way up. Denali does not announce when you have gone too far. It does not tell you to turn around. It only waits, in its ancient cold, to see whether you understood, before you ever set foot on it, exactly what you were climbing into.